Good evening, everyone. Thank you for joining us tonight. I'm Whitney Ward.
Welcome, everyone. I'm Mark Handrahan. Let's get straight to some breaking news at this hour. The Union Gospel Mission Men's Shelter is closed for new intakes effective immediately. The shelter says they had an outbreak of 70 coronavirus cases since Christmas. Right now, there are 30 active cases and 5 shelter staff are out due to COVID.
They say due to increased cleaning and reduced bed capacity, plus other factors, staff just are not able to meet the demands of more intakes. The plan now is to reopen the men's shelter to new intakes February 14th after they can evaluate the outbreak there in the shelter. We did speak with leaders today of the shelter on the challenges of isolating and also having people quarantine during this pandemic.
They're trying to get out of the elements or out into a program. And then we're asking them to move back into a period of isolation that can be tremendously difficult for a lot of our clients. So our counselors and our case management staff have been in communication with them as best as possible while they've been isolating.
We're also told Union Gospel Mission will be testing twice a week for COVID now. The new protocols that they're putting into place only restrict new intakes. 120 people still are at that facility, but everyone, we're told, is in quarantined rooms. The shelter is also following social distancing protocols. Union Gospel Mission now working with the city to get more people into beds and finding places with additional availability.
Huge news for the towns of Malden and Pine City. 5 months after a devastating wildfire destroyed roughly 85% of the buildings in the rural towns, the Biden administration today approved federal aid to help them rebuild.
This move triggers the release of funding from FEMA now to help those communities. KREM 2's Amanda Rowley joining us live now with more on what that announcement means for the people who live there.
Good evening. This is an emotional day for the Malden and Pine City communities. They have waited 148 days for this funding, and in that time, the people have remained strong and positive. The towns of Malden and Pine City have waited 5 months for federal assistance following the massive wildfire that leveled the majority of homes here. Today, these communities finally got the good news. They are approved for public assistance from FEMA. That funding will help rebuild public infrastructure damaged by the fire. This includes power lines, roads, and water and sewage systems. But families and homeowners are still waiting for federal assistance to come through as well.
It's like the sunshine is shining and there's not a cloud in the sky.
I was truly excited, started sharing and commenting.
Some of the people I talked to in Malden today say they feel like 100 pounds has been lifted from their back.
We've had folks come in today and, they've had tears in their eyes. I mean, this is huge. It is the beginning. And we want folks to keep writing their senators and representatives and Governor Inslee and telling them, thank you.
The $2.5 million in individual federal assistance for people affected by the wildfires remains under review. Governor Jay Inslee's office confirms it is part of his proposed budget and currently being considered by the state legislature. If the individual assistance is approved, it would be available beginning July 1st.
Baby step, but it is a huge step. We've just got to continue having patience and, like the mayor said, faith.
There has been quite a bit of progress here in clearing away damages from the fire, but the public assistance funding should help the community complete that step in rebuilding. Now, I do have to say, it was just great to see some smiles and just pure joy here in Malden today. These communities have just been through so much, and they really deserve to get some good news. Reporting in Malden this evening, Amanda Rowley, KREM 2 News.
And the Malden Pine City Long-Term Recovery Group has been diligently pressing state and local leaders to get this federal aid.
One of the group members explained the public assistance that they got FEMA's approval for will be used for infrastructure. That includes fire and police departments, roads, and some cleanup. But individual assistance from FEMA, that's still under review.
If we get it, it can mean grants up to $33,000 for people who qualify, grants that they won't have to repay for rebuilding a home. And also, then there can be, there's a number of programs, housing programs, help, counseling, all kinds of things that come in with IA that would be extremely helpful for my community. If we're denied IA, it would be tough, but we can work with that. There's still options available that open up, doors that open once we're turned down or approved for IA. But we've been, again, waiting for that yes or the no to go forward.
Today, Governor Jay Inslee released a statement following the Biden administration's approval of Washington's major disaster declaration. He stated, quote, "This federal aid will help rebuilding public infrastructure that suffered damage during the devastating fire. The money will go toward power lines, roadways, fencing around public areas, and water and sewage systems." His statement reads in part, "Today's approval for the FEMA aid by the White House will help get these communities moving forward more swiftly toward recovery." The governor also thanked the Biden administration for acting quickly and making this funding available.
But today's major disaster declaration, which we requested last September, will help get these communities moving more swiftly to recovery.
And also, Eastern Washington Congresswoman Cathy McMorris Rodgers applauding Biden's approval of this federal aid. She had sent 3 letters to Trump's administration urging approval of Inslee's request. McMorris Rodgers spoke with the president personally back in December. At the beginning of this year, she also then wrote to President Biden in an effort to ensure that the governor's request would receive attention and approval. McMorris Rodgers visited Malden and Pine City days after the fire. She said the devastation took her breath away. And in a statement today, she said, "The biggest fear I had when I visited was that after the speeches were over and the news cameras were gone, politicians would forget about Malden." She says, "I have worked tirelessly since that visit to make sure that didn't happen and to push to get these communities the relief they so desperately need."
Senator Maria Cantwell also released a statement on the approval of the major disaster declaration request for Malden. It reads in part, "No one should play politics with disaster relief. Now it is time to help Malden rebuild with this disaster declaration, which makes FEMA resources available to individuals and public assistance to communities to help rebuild things like roads, bridges, and power lines."
And a lot of progress has been made since the Bab Malden fire ripped through Whitman County. Today was a victory, certainly, for the community working to rebuild.
But where did this all begin? Let's break down the timeline tonight. Monday, September 7, 2020, Labor Day. The Bab Malden fire sparked at around noon. The towns of Malden and Pine City, which were once some of the largest and fastest growing communities in the region, were devastated.
Then Wednesday, September 9th, Commissioner of Public Lands Hillary Franz visited the 2 towns. She promised the mayor there resources would be sent in to help.
Thursday, September 10th, Governor Jay Inslee toured the impacted area. Inslee met with local first responders, law enforcement, and residents. He vowed to help the city get back on its feet.
And it was on that same day that Congresswoman Cathy McMorris Rodgers also visited Malden and Pine City, and she thanked all who had responded. McMorris Rodgers promised also that she and her team would work to support the recovery efforts.
Thursday, September 17th, Commissioner Franz made good on her promise to help communities rebuild. She gifted them with a brand new fire truck after their only fire truck was destroyed in the fire.
Now today, nearly 5 months later after that devastating fire, President Biden again approving disaster relief today for Malden and Pine City.
This is a step in the right direction for those communities that have been struggling to rebuild ever since. All right, let's transition now to talk weather. Cool, cloudy, and dry was the story for most of the day around here, but that could all change later tonight.
We're headed for something. We want to turn things over now to Tom Sherry for our first look at the forecast. Hi, Tom.
Yeah, well, hello. We are tracking rain that will move into the area this evening, possibly changing to a wet snow. Will not stick around, though, as we look for highs tomorrow in the 40s. Look at that beautiful pavilion that is all lit up in red. And, of course, we are celebrating that for February is Red Month, right?
Go red for women.
Go red for women, exactly. Breast cancer support, 38 degrees right now. You can see the wind is out of the south-southwest at 10 miles per hour. Here's a look at the Doppler radar. Some snow occurring over in areas of northern Idaho. Also in north-central Washington, we're seeing a little bit of snow again. We'll look for some rain to develop here before it changes over to a little snow later on. 32 will be the overnight low. 44 the expected high temperature on your Friday. And then we'll look for a chance of rain and snow showers Saturday, but still mild at 43 for the high. Colder weather develops on Sunday, but it's drier in 37. When I take a look at my 10-day outlook, you're going to see temperatures, they really get cold next week. We're talking about overnight lows dropping down into the teens. Details on that coming up in just a few minutes.
All right, Tom, thank you. New tonight, after our KREM 2 investigation, a small historic cemetery has won a court battle against the Spokane Gun Club. Last summer, we talked with both sides about the gun club's plan to build a gun range right across the street from the Medical Lake Cemetery, which has been there for almost 150 years. County commissioners lifted a no shooting restriction in that area, and the Spokane County hearing examiner then granted the gun club a conditional use permit to build the range. There were dozens of complaints, though, and concern that the sound of constant gunfire would be disruptive for neighbors as well as cemetery visitors. Lincoln County Superior Court this week issued a judgment in support of the cemetery's appeal.
At the end of the day, the bottom line is we were right, and the county and the Spokane Gun Club were wrong. As the court noticed, there was a process here that unfolded that was not in the interest of the constituents and very much not in the interest of property owners in the area of this proposed development.
So now the issue is going to go back to the Spokane County hearing examiner, and the gun club has to decide now if it's going to continue pursuing that same property but with modifications or move to a different location altogether. I did reach out to the gun club this afternoon but have not heard back. All right, the work to put out vaccines moving out of the hospitals now and into mass vaccination sites. Coming up next, we're explaining how the state is shifting its focus on the vaccine rollout.
And we are tracking coronavirus numbers as data from the Spokane Regional Health District shows hospitalizations are on the decline. More on that coming up after the break.